Hi, and welcome to this session, Topical Authority with Koray. So, Koray, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for having me here. I'm Koray Tuğberk Gübür, and I'm well known around the concept of topical authority as godfather of it. And also, a couple of people call me sometimes like Sultan of SEO, Einstein of SEO, or a couple of more names. And I just go with the flow. However they call me, I'm okay with that. And we own a community called Holistic SEO, an agency, and a couple of more things, basically.
Brilliant. And we've known each other, what, 5 years? 4 or 5 years?
I guess maybe more than that, maybe 6 now, I guess.
All right, brilliant. Okay. And I've been reading your stuff for years, and I believe you've been reading my stuff for years. I think there's great mutual respect.
That's true. Yeah. You are actually one of my top guys in the industry always, Jason. I guess based on your also wisdom and very honest character and also your unique knowledge as well.
Super. Oh, that's very kind. And I can return the compliment exactly. Intelligence, honest nature, and generosity, which is something you've always had.
Thank you so much.
And I've just created my approach to tracking. And it's also an approach to educating training, which is funnel query pathway, which is identify the perfect query that your ideal client would ask, or the ideal question they might ask, but they probably don't, that it identifies them as the person who is about to convert. Then you identify the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 middle of the funnel queries that would naturally lead to that the people might or might not ask. It doesn't actually matter. And then the top of the query funnel, which will be topical authority, is when somebody asks about topic X, which are the entities that come to mind?
That makes sense. Usually in our terminology, we call it like core section and outer section of topical map. Core is directly for converting and making money, and all the ranking signal goes there. The outer section usually is for getting more historical data, meaning that actually if it is not a very commercial term, but still we know that people are searching for it, to gain the trust of the search engine and also prove that it is worth to invest that cost for this site, we try to publish really good amount of outer section, meaning lots of informational or between informational commercial topics as well. So outer section gains the historical data. Through the internal links, it always flows this ranking signal to the core section all the time. So in semantics, actually, when you create a topical map, you'll be covering all of these different segments of the funnel naturally. You don't have to show an extra effort for it. It will happen naturally because semantics also come from reasoning, basically.
No, sorry, I was just thinking what you said earlier on, because our minds keep meeting, and mine comes from microeconomics to macroeconomics, which is how I came to this. It's saying we can't measure micro in the LLMs and the assistive engines, so we need to have a macro approach, and this is my beginnings. I've only been working on it for a few months. But next question is about topical authority. I'm talking about topical ownership, which this is what I published in Search Engine Land, which was the coverage is a depth, breadth, and original thought. Architecture is source, content, topical map, and semantic network. And then position is temporal, hierarchical, and narrative. Can you give me your view on that particular 9-cell matrix for topical ownership?
Of course, depth, breadth, original thought we say here. The coverage section, of course, makes sense. Usually, when it comes to the topical authority, I try to explain it also in a similar way. Basically, how wide you cover, how deep you cover, and also how fast you cover. In the old times, like 2021 and 2022, momentum, we call it. If you publish more frequently, you are ranking better. Today is different because if you publish 500 documents a day, Google calls it scaled content and they give you manual or algorithmic penalties. That's why even if we can publish 1,000 documents a day today, we don't do it. We always try to stay under the human range. But the first section definitely makes sense. Just maybe...
Sorry, just to come back to that, because depth and breadth is absolutely something I got from you along with the architecture. Original thought, you replaced that just now with velocity. So
not replacing, but maybe adding or merging with that too. And one more section there is, when it comes to the coverage, people usually don't understand. They just say cover everything, but it's not just like that. For instance, we created actually a helping concept for it, like query deserves a page, query deserves a heading, or query deserves just a section. Meaning that some queries and some topics, they need to be a separate page. And some of them should be just a section under another page. So if you cover it as a page, or if you cover it as just a heading or just as a section, it gives a different level of weight to that coverage. So you should define how you are going to cover it exactly, especially, for instance, for local SEO project, especially, even there is a recent example. I can give you a site example maybe later too. But if you open too many local pages, for instance, like let's say there is a city and you keep opening new pages for that service, like let's say the city beach, city downtown, city west, city, etc. Meaning that instead of opening just one central page, you divided every sub-district into the different pages. Usually, if there is not enough level of search demand, it's going to cannibalize. And if there is enough level of search demand, it means Google will be creating a new index, then you can cover it as a page as well. So deciding which one will be a page, which one will be just a heading is still a little bit tricky in people's minds. But technically, velocity or the momentum is still important. But if you go too high velocity, it means you are using AI and scaled content. And Google usually doesn't like it. Even if initially they rank you better, then they start decreasing your rankings. That's why, especially in programmatic projects or programmatic SEO projects, we try to stay under the radar for a long time to make Google to actually like the site as much as possible.
Now, that local example really speaks to me, because I was thinking about that a few weeks ago and I hadn't thought of it that way. But I'm beginning to think original thought shouldn't be in that top right-hand corner, but that's a problem for me for tomorrow or later on today. In the middle one, architecture, source context, topical map, and semantic network. For me in my brain, that's Koray.
Thank you. Yeah, and source context basically is explaining why you are ranking there, because you have to have a commercial connection. If you don't have any function for ranking there, Google wouldn't actually try to rank you there anymore, especially after the helpful content system update. They try to connect every query to a function, a search activity or real-world activity. Without selling pens, ranking for pens gets harder today. In the old times, it wasn't like that. You will be able to rank with enough level of relevance with a certain site. But today, if you are not selling it, if you are not designing it, or if you are not having any function for that specific noun or the query, they will avoid ranking you. That's why the source context, meaning what you do and why you need to rank for it, should be making sense to them. I sometimes call these topical metrics, and I put a query to the middle, and this example can be drawn and used maybe by the people later. Let's say the query is PHP developer salary. And there are 4 or 5 different source contexts here. You can be a PHP forum, you can be a PHP course website, you can be a, let's say, HR website, or you can be just a university website that gives actually this education. Meaning that actually 4 different sites try to rank for the same query, but all of their anchor text, internal links, and what they do is different. So Google needs to actually understand which type of sites should be ranking for that query, especially. And that's why recently we are talking about visual semantics, because if Google tries to rank e-com sites, you will need to trick them. Even if you are not an e-com, you need to have some similar layout to the e-com to rank there, because they classify the sites according to the functions, and visual layout is really important for that angle as well. So that 3 sections, the semantic content network, source context, and I guess the middle one was a topical map. Yeah, they are coming from this alignment basically.
Brilliant. Okay, super duper. I mean, so all of this, so far so good. What about the position where I'm saying temporal? If you're the first, you're presumably preferred to some extent, but you're saying temporal is all well and good, but you actually need to maintain it over time. So it's not good enough to say I was there first. You have to say I was there first and I'm still doing it.
Because they can change it. I mean, they can convince the search engine the other way around. Or maybe in the first place, Google will be giving you a citation like this person invented it, but later they can tell also there are different opinions who invented it, for instance. Yeah. The result there might be changing directly, especially Google is the very politically correct search engine. They would always try to give safest answer to make everybody happy. So this is a very, for instance, conflicting query type. Who did it first? That's why they will probably, most of the time, if there is not a Wikipedia page, for instance, for it, or if there is not a very strong, as in your terminology called entity home, for instance, if there is not a very strong entity home to get the fact from, they will be able to giving 3 or 4 different perspectives and the angles by giving an objective answer. So you should always maintain the recency, in my opinion.
Okay, and indeed, if you're having original thought that I see in the top right-hand corner, and you're placing it as temporal, my temporal claim to my original thought, you need to create the entity home for that original thought.
That is true, because if you don't do that, then it's going to be very harder for you to maintain it. And cheapest and the fastest way usually is either having a very strong Wikipedia page for it, or maybe even an original domain for that, like just for the concept itself. And if you open a domain for that concept itself, Google will be actually taking the facts or trusted facts from that domain. For person type of entities or certain type of, let's say, the entities, it works way faster. But when it comes to the methodology concepts, you can still use the domain methodology too, or you can even publish an ebook with the exact name. And you can open a website for the ebooks itself. And you can actually manipulate the Google's thoughts through the ebook and through the ebook official site, basically.
Brilliant. And for Kalicube, because I'm calling it the Kalicube Framework and the Kalicube process, I just put it all under Kalicube.
That's definitely. And also, since they crawl it from there for the first time, they will still use it as a source. But let's say there is a competing source tries to manipulate or blend this data for them, then actually having exact match domain, maybe like directly Kalicube Framework or Kalicube, etc. type of domains also will be helpful too. I sometimes, to be honest, call these domains wasteful domain, because I just publish them for educating the LLMs, meaning that I don't care about regular rankings there. I just launch the domain and then I keep publishing content there in the way that actually they all approve each other. And then actually they help me to manipulate the results in a better way.
Okay, super. And next, hierarchical. So do your peers defer to you? For example, I say Koray Gübür is the godfather of topical authority. That's deference on the particular subject of topical authority. How important is that to get topical ownership?
I believe it is important in terms of phrase taxonomy too, because in some cases, the web answers, they are not coming from knowledge graphs. They are just trying to find a satisfying and similar result. Meaning that if the query term or the question term has a different extra phrase there, having also one answer somewhere that is having that extra phrase will be very helpful too. Because they can't register every fact in knowledge graph. It will be, again, too expensive and too repetitive, and it will be very hard to sustain it all the time. But instead, some of the answers, they might be just coming from actually a web answer, meaning that there is a web document that is referencing that question with very similar terms, and they just choose that web answer. It doesn't mean that they are serving a fact from knowledge graph there. They are just serving the highest possible accurate answer that they got in that index directly. So using different variations of the term, like let's say hierarchical, narrative, temporal, and coining these things very explicit way in different set of connected documents will be very helpful to actually have your own narrative, basically, and convince them directly.
Right, okay. And that brings me to another question then with the, you were saying knowledge graph, and you were suggesting, well, there's a limit to how big the knowledge graph can get because there's a maintenance problem, both in terms of cost and in terms of keeping it accurate. But James Dooley was on talking about his idea that a knowledge graph is cost of retrieval friendly compared to grounding.
It can be if you have enough level of resources on that. But for instance, if I just publish a website about, let's say, a fantasy novel, and let's say novel is a novel that I created for, and I just ask there a question, I just make things up here. Let's say there is a planet called, I don't know, Wiltrum, and I say, who found the Wiltrum Republic? So there is only one website that talks about it. So there is no time to refresh that knowledge graph that fast, and they will need to just find the closest possible document and get the answer from there. If you put knowledge graph every mid-process, meaning that find the document and approve it from the knowledge graph, then give the answer, it's really costly, and it will be making everything actually slower, and it will be also causing you to keep refreshing all the time, because then I will be publishing another document that tells the opposite, and then they will get that fact as well, and then if they will
I mean, a knowledge graph is only useful for established facts, and so there is
and most queries, they look like factual, but they are not that related. Sorry for interrupting. If I did.
No, it's okay.
I was trying to tell that most of the query terms, yes, they are factual, but there is not that much verification chance for these facts because there are like 8 billion people on the planet, and you can't create a note in knowledge base for every one of them, for their birthdays, for their names, for their spouses, their net worth. It's too much money to spend, to be honest. Instead, I can just trust Facebook, Instagram, and a couple of sources, and Facebook can spend their money for it, and I can just serve it.
Yes.
Faster.
So, in fact, there is a question of worthiness to get into the knowledge graph, in the sense that it isn't going to put you in the knowledge graph if there's no practical reason to do so.
100%. There should be a notability of the entity or importance of the entity, plus there should be some queries about the entity. If nobody searches for it, or even if some people search for it, there is not enough level of document or prominence, search engine wouldn't actually bother itself to spend that money on that. And that's why I believe they are trying to also use offline databases too, to actually get all these facts and integrate them to the knowledge graph, because web is not that regular or not that much discipline. It's very chaotic. Just from the Twitter, if you ask a question to the, I believe there was a tool, OSINT it is called. If you even actually Grok, for instance, there was a research other day. It was trying to measure how well LLMs are answering health questions, and Grok was the worst because Grok data is coming from tweets. And it was giving 40% of the answers that come from Grok, large language model for health, they are wrong because tweets are so random. I mean, you can't trust a data set that is coming from Twitter or tweets. I can type anything there. It's so hard to get a grounded fact in that area.
Right. And well, that brings me to the kind of a question is, for example, Jason Barnard. There are 15 Jason Barnards in the knowledge graph. And it isn't saying, actually, there are 15 Jason Barnards I want to put in the knowledge graph. It's creating them because it's trying to disambiguate, and it's got all of these different resources thinking, well, this might be another one, but it might be the same one.
True. It's actually always a little bit tricky from Google's point of view. And in my opinion, you know this section better than I do with your experience too. Usually Google, whenever they have an IMDb profile, they call it, let's say, another Jason Barnard. Then they get another Facebook profile. Okay, this can be another Jason Barnard. Then they get a LinkedIn profile. Okay, this also can be another Jason Barnard too, because they are not that much certain who is who. And usually that's why the entity home to organize all these links and the profiles and the resources gets very important. And when there is a knowledge graph update or knowledge base update, they can actually merge and consolidate these entities. But even that back then too, it's not still that easy to do all of them. And usually I believe using the entity ID, the KGMID number in the URL for getting the results on that specific entity will be helpful to see what Google is indexing for this profile or this entity. And from there, you can actually differentiate the list of results. Okay, there are 15 Jason Barnards, and Google is indexing these for these different profiles, and 13 of them are actually me. And how I can actually connect these different pages to each other with using similar triples or similar declarations. That will be one of the processes, basically.
Well, we do that, and we call it deduplication. When multiple KGMIDs are obviously the same person, we once again have empathy for the beast. We help the child, we educate it, we train it, and we say, actually, these are all the same person, with the strategy that you just laid out. Not exactly quite like that, but anyway, narrative, the last one, that others refer to you. So this is getting a mention with the topic associated, and that's the last one of this 9.
True. This again coming to my third party domain structure. I usually have 3 types of domain in my system. Main domain, which is main site that we are ranking. Extension domains. I can give 2 examples for this. For instance, one of them is streamingmatthew.com or audio-to-text.com. For instance, transcriptor can't rank for audio-to-text.com. Then I can create a second site with an exact match domain. Then I rank it directly, because when you have site name factored with satisfying clicks and some important references from the link graph, you can rank it way faster and better than your main domain. The third one is the wasteful domain, meaning that actually I create multiple different type of domains. Let's say HoustonCorrectionAttorney.org. Then I just put there listicles, answers, questions, and lots of different pages, or like attorneys.lexcenter.net or Houston.actionattorney.org. These are actual sites that people can check. And you can directly put there the facts that you want to present. And from there, whenever Google finds these facts on multiple resources, they trust that fact more. And you help them to extract. And exactly as you said, actually, you educate the kid through their journey. The kid goes to a door and finds a similar story, then goes to another door, finds another similar story, and the kid starts to believe in that. And then they start to just actually use that fact whenever somebody asks them to answer it, basically.
I love that analogy, because I actually wrote a book that never got published because I ended up arguing with the person who was writing it with me, where that analogy is exactly what we were saying, is the kid keeps going from door to door. Oh,
yeah, I remember that book actually. Like I believe 4 or 5 years ago, I guess you were writing that. Yeah, it was a very good story. You can even actually turn it today a short movie with AI, to be honest. Like,
yes. Well, and that was the thing. I remember now. The guy interviewed you. I've forgotten about that. It was 5 years ago, I think you're right.
Yeah.
And it was a lovely book. It was a lovely story, and it was a story about a child, and the child was actually me. And me growing up and becoming this kind of, anyway, it was delightful. But let's get back on track. That was absolutely brilliant. But one last thing is this: where does topical authority fit into this Kalicube framework, the diagram we've got in front of us?
In my opinion, it has attached to every one of these letters with different percentages, I can say. Because the topical authority is technically a ranking state, meaning that if you are an authority on a topic as a web source, you will be crawled more frequently. They will be willing to invest more money on you. They will be discovering you. And actually, again, they will be grounding the facts based on you. You can change definition of concepts. You can relate concepts to other concepts. You can even expand a topic. Let's say you rank number 1 for types of interest rate. And you can tell that not there is 14, but there are 22 types of interest rate. And Google can actually see that, okay, there are 22. They ground the fact from you, and not any of the resources, other resources, they don't have 22. They have 8, 14, maybe 12, meaning that actually you expand the topic and you decrease their coverage while keeping yours still 100%. So if you are able to define the facts, basically a grounding source, definitely will be displayed also in the answers more frequently as well. So in my opinion, it is everywhere with different percentages, from technical aspects or from content aspects or other examples too.
Brilliant. That was the most delightful conversation I've had in an awfully long time. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Jason. I need to tell that actually you are always one of the most important person actually in my industry, with your knowledge, with your everything that actually you taught us for all these years. And I really appreciate everything that you do for all of us, really. I'm glad that you are one of my friends.
Thank you. I'm super glad you're one of my friends. And the stuff you teach me every time I talk to you is always mind-blowing. I'm going to go away. My mind is currently spinning around in all sorts of directions, and I won't sleep tonight.
Have to know that.
Thank you.
Thank you as well, Jason.